Often the words gangsters bring to mind prohibition in the United States and names like Al Capone or Bonnie and Clyde. However, England also had its own underworld kings. In London in the 1950s and 60s, the twins Ronnie and Reginald Kray dominated the streets and elite clubs. During the day, the owners of trendy nightclubs and casinos surrounded by lords, actresses, and musicians, and at night, violent bandits who kept half the city at bay. Their multifaceted image, which turned out to be a mass product of the 60s, even became the subject of a biography and the film Legend with Tom Hardy. But we will tell this story without too much romance, as it really is. From the poor slums to the highest tribunals in Britain, you are on Paradoria. Enjoy watching. Twins Ronald and Reginald Kray were born on 24th of October 1933 in a poor area of the East End of London. Their father was always on the road. When the twins were 3 years old, they both had severe diphtheria. Ronnie almost died and survived as if by a miracle. He was nervous and short-tempered, prone to violent mood swings, and Reginald sometimes strangely restrained him. Already in their school years, both showed an incredible talent for fighting for teenagers. Ronnie was particularly interested in books about gangsters. He liked to read about the life of Al Capone and other crime bosses. Although, according to one researcher, he studied poorly and even received a diagnosis of mentally retarded. The Second World War finally broke the usual way of life. Because of the bombing, the Kray family was evacuated to the village, where the boys learned to read syllables. Unsupervised, Ronnie and Reginald quickly became street bullies. Ronnie was extremely fearless and brutal. Any quarrel could turn into a fight. As a result, the young Krays dropped out of school and by the age of 15 began to earn their first legal income. They spent 2 months selling fish at the local market. In a military camp in London, they refused to obey. As soon as one of the ensigns tried to stop them, Ronnie didn't hesitate to slap him across the jaw. The brothers were captured the next morning and put on trial. They were eventually kicked out of the army and sentenced to prison. In the military prison, the brothers broke up in earnest. They seized exercise equipment in the yard, poured hot food on the guards, set fire to prison sheets, and tried to handcuff the guard with their own handcuffs. They even chained one sergeant to the bars with their own handcuffs and beat him with a poker. Psychiatrists quickly established that Ronnie Kray was suffering from paranoid schizophrenia. Released by the mid-1950s, the Kray brothers realized that they were not going to live an honest life. The only thing left for them was crime. With their army greatcoats slung over their shoulders and their long-standing violent tendencies, the image of the army gunners of the streets was quickly born. When Ronnie was sent back to prison for stabbing another gang member in a fight, Reggie was left on his own, and he took the chance. Around 1960, with his savings, they opened their first bar. This pub became the first office of their future organization, which they soon named The Firm. Groups of street hooligans were constantly gathering around the bar. The new team licked up the profits, arranged a showdown. And although these cases were dirty, they brought the first large sum. Finally, when Ronnie was released from prison, he discovered that their firm had become an influential, albeit gang organization. Then came the second step. Reggie met a Frenchman named Leslie Payne, an expert in investing criminal money. Leslie Payne suggested, invest in a legal business and do not shine. Kray took the advice. So in the early 60s, the firm had its first real nightclub, Esmeralda's Barn. This club quickly became profitable and fashionable. A lot of celebrities started appearing at Esmeralda, and Reggie finally got a taste of life. Here, he could sit at a table with lords and actresses, considering himself a man of high society. But no bandit empire is complete without its dark services. Kray, along with Leslie Payne, invested part of the illegal income in a casino, where the worldly rich also played big. The higher the firm rose, the more pretentious its cover became. The Kray brothers learned to wear gangster charisma. They wore custom-made double-breasted suits, expensive cufflinks, and massive gold rings, just like the characters in Mafia movies. British sociologists later wrote that the Krays were masters of PR. In that golden period, they themselves confidently declared that they felt like the owners of the city. Ronnie later wrote in his autobiography,
"Those were the best years of our lives. The Beatles and the Rolling Stones ruled pop music, Carnaby Street ruled fashion, and my brother and I ruled London. We were invulnerable."
These words perfectly reflect what the entrepreneurs of the firm thought. They are imperturbable, untouchable, and they have an indefinite license to beat people's heads. Almost everyone admired them. Even the authorities turned a blind eye. However, any dangerous game turns around sooner or later. In the late 1960s, contradictions and conflicts grew. In London, the firm met an influential rival gang, the Richardsons. They started quarreling over territories and debts. Only in 1966 did full-scale skirmishes break out between them. People on both sides were injured or killed. The next blow to the empire was the intervention of the police. Detective Leonard Reed had been studying the firm closely since 1964, but after a few kills, he understood. This isn't a joke. He gathered special detectives and began preparing an operation to capture the brothers. Meanwhile, in 1966, Ronnie became infatuated with the goal of another legend. In prison, he befriended Frank Mitchell, an equally violent prisoner. On December 12, 1966, Ronnie arranged for Mitchell's daring escape from prison. He put him in a car and drove him out. It made headline. Everyone was looking for Mitchell, Britain's most violent criminal. Police, Marines, even helicopters. In the end, the plans fell through. Mitchell quickly realized that the authorities would catch him sooner or later, and he didn't want to come back voluntarily. Meanwhile, Ronnie's mental state has already noticeably worsened. From idleness and drugs, he finally became a madman. At the same time, the firm was still working, but the nervousness was growing. Soon, the brothers decided to remove another person who knew too much, their business advisor, Leslie Payne. He became very awkward. He could always stand up in hostility against their illegal activities, but they were afraid to kill a knowledgeable brother. Then they hired a professional hitman, a small-time London drug dealer, Jack McVitie, who himself owed them a large sum. They gave him a gun and £500 and told him to kill Leslie. But Jack was a coward. He went to Leslie's house in the late afternoon, but it wasn't the landlord who was there, but his wife. I went in, fired a shot, and lo and behold, I hit the wall behind her, not hitting anyone alive. He handed the gun to his wife with an apology and disappeared. Instead of paying them back or negotiating, Jack embezzled the proceeds of £500. And when the firm found out that the job wasn't done, Ronnie was furious. In December 1967, he arranged a plot. He invited the deceived killer to another party in one of the nightclubs. Ronnie stabbed the man several times. McVitie's body was taken to the outskirts of the city and left outside the church, as if it had been abandoned. These brutal murders finally subdued others with fear. The members of the firm realized that they simply had no choice. The blood took its toll. On May 8, 1968, Nipper Reed ordered a special operation. The Kray brothers themselves and about 15 other people from their entourage were arrested in different parts of the city. Everyone was taken to separate cells so that they would not conspire. Everyone began to be questioned. The irony is that after their arrest, their conclusion only got worse. The brothers came up with a clever plan to evade responsibility. It was necessary to make sure that all the murders were taken over by others. Shortly before the trial, a twist intervened in the case. A friend of Ronnie says that he saw Ronnie personally shoot many people. Ronnie Kray had already been sent to a special prison hospital where he had been transferred since the 1970s due to growing bouts of schizophrenia. He did not get out of custody. In 1995, he became ill in his sleep. He died of a heart attack at the age of 61. Reginald Kray spent exactly 32 years in prison. In 2000, under pressure from the media, he was released for humanitarian reasons. 2 months later, he died of cancer at the age of 66. Thank you for watching this video to the end. Please like, subscribe to the channel, and write your opinion about this story in the comments. See you soon.